Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. In today's video, we're going to be continuing Neon Genesis Evangelion, the Spider's Thesis. What if Shinji was Spider-Man? Part 6. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that is to come out now and in the future. As we continue on in the story of Evangelion, as Shinji continues in his role as Spider-Man, the enemies continue to come fast and furious, as Nerve continues whatever its ulterior motives are as they progress towards its final stages. Secrets, lies, all get revealed in this edition of the Spider's Thesis, not only for our heroes, but even more so for the ones that watch over them. Who will they be able to trust as time continues to tick away, until eventually mankind's salvation or destruction will be near at hand? Stay tuned as we now continue. Neon Genesis Evangelion, the Spider's Thesis. What if Shinji was Spider-Man? Part 6. As always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For many people that lived in Tokyo 3, the idea of a normal and ordinary life had long since abandoned them. Of course, it was only 15 years ago when Second Impact had occurred, nearly destroying humanity, and in the last 15 years from what had been rebuilt was a population of people who looked at life in a rather morbid sort of way. There was always the thought of, what if today was our last day on Earth? What if today was the day that the angels finally won? Of course, many people took those sentiments to heart, truly living a life with no care or worry, reasoning that the world could end at any moment, so why give into the ideas of law and order? Of course, there were others who still clung to the traditional way of things. Even if the world was going to descend into chaos, they were not going to let themselves be swallowed up into madness. At least that's what they told themselves. From children having their conversations on the playground to adults at work, the fear of the world ending by the angels was always imminent. It was always in the back of your mind, whether you wanted to admit it or not. It wasn't a matter of if an attack was going to come, it had simply become a matter of when and how bad it would be. Many people chose to build up their net worth and their savings, hoping that whatever financial security they had placed their hopes into would protect them. Others placed their hopes in religion, although that was spotty at best. There were others who were nihilists and just chose not to go either way. They would live their lives as they ordinarily did, and until the world ended, they would continue on as if it didn't. Of course, everyone had their own ways of dealing, their own ways of coping, some better than others. There was an older man down on his luck, an immigrant from the South Americas. The man's name was Anton Miguel Rodriguez. He had originally joined in the construction workforce, just doing whatever jobs he could get, no matter how far it took him. Now he found himself in Tokyo 3, and thankfully there were always some things that had to be rebuilt, but even still, with Nerve taking over many of those aspects, layoffs were inevitable, and Anton now found himself out of a job. It was a scorching hot day in Tokyo 3. Anton had walked out of the convenience store with a cold bottle of beer. It was the little bit of what his money could buy him. He wasn't even sure if he could even make his way back home, and even if he did, what good could he be to his family? He had no means of providing for them, no real means of making a living for himself. He didn't really have the skills necessary to find a job in a better field, and, well, things were only going from bad to worse. As he found himself downing the last bits of alcohol, he found himself sitting on a park bench, the heat wave washing over. He figured at the very least he might be able to find something, anything. That was when a tingling sensation washed over him. It started out as a mere annoyance, like a small headache, but it continued to grow more and more and more. He started seeing visions of a tarantula, of spiders. It got to the point where it was clouding his entire sight, and he could no longer take it. The man felt himself being driven mad, and for the people who were nearby, they thought that the man was starting to have a panic attack. He was ranting and raving like a lunatic. He yelled, he cried out in anger, begging for it to stop, for the pain, for the images to get out of his head. And then the voices, the many, many voices that sounded like death itself, the sounds of evil, of pure destruction and chaos, like a whirlwind swirling within his own subconscious, the one place that he could not escape from no matter how far he ran. In a final yell, he would tell them all to leave. The people looking on as the man's body began to transform, his body taking on a much more monstrous appearance. His clothes ripping apart as he grew taller, his body turning into a red hide of sorts, like an ectoskeleton. His feet turning into that like a long talon or claw, 2 points on either end of his foot. Black markings like that of the spider began to loom over him, and then finally, an almost mask-like appearance as well. He screamed one word: kill. At that exact same moment, an energy wave would wash over Tokyo 3, causing a massive blackout. Shinji and the others were preparing to head over to NERV headquarters, but with the blackout now taking place, they wondered if things were going to be alright. Of course, for those at NERV, they would have, safe to say, their hands full. Of course, there were protocols in place in case they lost power entirely. They could operate and function decently enough using good old-fashioned landlines and good old-fashioned ingenuity. But still, when you're racing against the clock, never knowing when an attack is going to happen, you have to work diligently. As for Shinji, Rei, Penny, and Asuka, as they continued on, they could hear loud cries in the distance. A monstrous man was now moving towards them with quick speed. He yelled towards the four of them. "You are false children of Garia. I am the true son. I am the tarantula. I am her true descendant. You will all die." The man, now calling himself the tarantula, would move towards Shinji first. Using his spike-tipped like feet, he would start to lunge multiple kicks and strikes towards Shinji, one even managing to cut through the chest of his clothing and leaving a faint scar and bleeding. Shinji and the others would prepare for battle. Penny would have to use her device in order to summon the Spider-Mech suit. Thankfully, Spider-Mech didn't operate on the same grid like everything else. It could be summoned remotely, although it would take at least a few minutes for it to get here. For now, the only thing she could do was help other civilians and anyone else in harm's way evacuate, while Shinji, Rei, and Asuka would all transform into their spider-like suits as they battled against the tarantula. Asuka would use her telekinesis in order to grab hold of whatever she could find in order to fling it at the now transforming beast, while Shinji and Rei would use their webbing to try to slow him down. Asuka would follow along, but his strength was definitely comparable even to all three of them. "This guy's not easy to beat," Shinji would say. "Well, there's no point in complaining about it now, Wonder Boy," Asuka would yell towards him. "We have a job to do. That means taking him down no matter the cost." "You're all fakes. You're all fakes. It's pointless, meaningless. You cannot escape your sins. None of you. You're all going to die. All of you." "I see it. It's all pointless, meaningless." "What are you talking about?" Shinji would ask him. "Why does mankind exist? Why do we continue to fight and struggle in vain? Don't you understand? They're all coming. They're going to destroy us. Every single one of us. The only thing we can do is accept our fate and pay for our sins. Starting with you." He would point towards Shinji as he lunged towards him. Shinji would try to hold him off as Rei and Asuka would attempt to fend off against him. "Your family have committed the greatest sin. You will be the first to die." "What? What about my family?" "You tried to steal the power of God. You committed blasphemy. And for that, there is no forgiveness." The spider mech would finally arrive as Penny would don her spider armor, joining the others as she was able to move quickly behind the tarantula, picking him up and giving him a reverse suplex onto the concrete. The others would attempt to hold him down and try to restrain him as best as they could. However, he continued to fend off and fight against even all four of them. They knew they had to get back to Nerve and alert them to what was going on. In all likelihood, they would have to have the Avas on standby just in case, but they knew they all couldn't leave. However, Penny would think otherwise. "You guys go. I'll hold them off." "Wait, you can't do this alone," Shinji would say. "Come on. I'm the only one here who doesn't even have an Ava. You three do, and you're the pilots. You guys are more important at Nerve than I am right now. Besides, this thing hasn't fully emerged yet, so I can hold it off till then." Of course, Shinji wanted to protest, but Asuka would think otherwise in that regard. Penny was right. Out of all of them, she was the only one they could afford to leave behind, despite Shinji's protests. They would have no choice as they left to go to Nerve headquarters as quickly as they could, Shinji yelling back to Penny to make sure she didn't die or get hurt, and that they would be back soon. "It's fine. I can handle this. He's not so tough." "You cannot be forgiven. Last time I checked, I don't need forgiveness from some freak. It's your fault he's dead. You killed him. Benjamin." "What did you just say?" "You killed him. Your arrogance, your foolishness. You killed him." Penny was then reminded of her past. Despite her happy-go-lucky personality, seeming as though nothing could bother or faze her, at the mention of that name, a deep-seated hatred began to wash over herself. Something she thought she had gotten over, but in fact she hadn't. "Don't you ever say that name. Don't you ever say that name to me again! As Penny would engage against the tarantula, the two continuing to fight as he continued to transform into the full state of the angel known as Matral. Shinji and the others would eventually arrive to Nerve. They would have to go in through the vents, crawling and moving as fast as they could, until eventually they arrived where Ritsuko and Gendo were getting things prepared for the Evas to be launched manually. They would hop into the entry plugs without a moment's notice, as the Evas would be launched, just in time to find Penny fighting for her life against the now fully transformed angel. Penny was at her end. Even in her Spider-Mech suit, there was only so much that she could do. Without an Eva, fighting once it had transformed into an angel would be nearly impossible. However, Eva Units 0, 1, and 2 would arrive on the scene, all three working together to fend off against the tarantula spider-like angel. It was almost a bit off-putting to fight against something like this, given the nature of their powers and where they had come from. But all the same, after restraining its movements and fending off the corrosive acid that it was spewing, Shinji would use the rifle attachment to Eva Unit 1, blasting it directly in the center eye and destroying it once and for all, while Asuka and Rei would use their AT fields to restrain it to the best of their abilities. As Shinji dealt the killing blow, the angel would finally self-destruct and would destroy. For the most part, the day was saved, and as Shinji and the others would check on Penny, making sure she was alright, despite the tired smile that was plastered on her face, there were still hints of sadness within her, even more so by the red that surrounded her eyes. Of course, life did not get any easier. They always had to deal with attacks on every side, never knowing when the next strike was going to come. There was, of course, the incident involving the American pilot who, by the name Adrian Toombs, had also undergone a transformation, turning into the 10th angel, Sahaquil. Adrian Toombs was a jet pilot for the United States, flying his own personal jet that he dubbed the Vulture. It was almost poetic that he had transformed into the flying-like angel, a large eye with wings that spread around it that loomed over the planet, shooting off projectiles almost like bombs that were making their way towards Nerve. Unfortunately, on this occasion, Gendo and Fuyutsuki were not here, and the newly promoted Misato would have to take over the procedures. Thankfully, she would come up with the idea of using Asuka's telekinesis as a way to try to bind and hold the angel in place, while Rei would use her AT field to protect him, and Shinji would deal the killing blow in Eva Unit 1. While the victory was theirs, there was also the collateral damage that came along with it, and with that, more paperwork. As if that wasn't bad enough, it wasn't too long after that, while doing a sync test, that another angel had occurred. It was of a microscopic type that attacked on a technical level. If it wasn't for the quick thinking of Ritsuko, it would have nearly taken over the Magi system that functioned all of Nerve itself and would have destroyed them from the inside. This was the life of working at Nerve, of being an Eva pilot. Never-ending threats always coming from every which way and from every angle. You got to a point where after a while you wondered what was even the reason for fighting. Of course, there was also the downtime that came along with it. On one day in particular, Kaji was actually going to a wedding, along with Misato and Ritsuko. It was for a close friend of theirs who was finally tying the knot. Of course, for the three adults now all in their 30s, the idea of marriage definitely loomed over them. Again, this was just one of the perks of living in a post-Second Impact era. Many people were no longer holding off tying the knot. Again, you never knew when what day could be your last. And did you really want to have the regret of not asking your sweetheart to marry you and potentially start a family, even if it could all be taken away? But of course, everyone here had their own personal baggage. Safe to say, relationships were not the strong suit of these three, and for two in particular, who tried to make it work together in their college days, but absolutely failed at doing so. For Masato, there were many emotions running through her mind at the wedding. She wondered if she could ever have such happiness. Of course, there was a time in her life where she thought she could have it with Kaji, but things ultimately didn't work out. She became driven by her job, by her purpose. Of course, there was also the personal baggage that she had with her own father, who was no longer here on this earth. She didn't know how to feel about the man. On one hand, he was a neglectful deadbeat. He basically all but abandoned Misato and her mom to pursue his own selfish research. To be honest, she hated him. She hated him with a burning passion. But when Second Impact occurred, it was him that saved her life. Now she found herself working with nerve, fighting against the angels. But was this something she really wanted? So often, Masato would criticize Shinji in her own mind. The boy practically did everything he was told without any rhyme or reason, without any so much as a fuss. She found it annoying. Not that she disliked Shinji in any way, no, she cared for him dearly. But still, the boy never put up any resistance. I mean, sure, he was a great pilot, and even more so as the hero he was becoming. The name Spider-Man was starting to become synonymous with Tokyo 3, and it wasn't just because of his fighting against the angels. No, it wasn't uncommon to see the boy clad in red and blue, swinging through the city, saving people from various criminals and stopping crime wherever he could. In every sense of the word, the boy was a hero, but was that what he really wanted to do? Or was he just doing this because he was told? Masato couldn't stand people like that, but still, was she any better? Was she any different from Shinji in that regard? What right did she have to question Shinji and what he did when she didn't even know why she did the things she did herself? Of course, the look of loss and confusion, it wasn't lost on anyone, especially Kaji. He knew Masato better than she thought, even better than she knew herself. And all the same, he still loved her. He loved her dearly. He loved her more than he could say he loved anything else in this world. But of course, he was a man that was patient. He wasn't going to force her to do anything she didn't want to do. Even if he had unrequited love, he would still watch over her to the best of his abilities. In the meantime, for Shinji, on this day in particular, he would visit the grave of his mother along with his father, Gendo Ikari. The two standing at the gravesite that they hadn't seen in over 3 years. Shinji stood beside his father, a silence between them. You know, I can't believe it's been 3 years, Shinji would say. I agree. It has been some time. There wasn't a body, right? When it happened. But still, you left a gravestone. Of course, it serves as a reminder. I never want to forget Shinji. And also, I see you've still taken on being a hero, it seems. I don't think I'm a hero. Not much. I disagree. The people of Tokyo 3 look up to you. You do a good job helping when you can, not just fighting the angels, but also in protecting the people. Father, yes, we are doing the right thing, aren't we? Fighting the angels, nerve, all of this. We're doing it for the right reasons, aren't we? Of course we are. What we do is for the benefit and for the protection of mankind. You serve in that purpose every time you pilot the Eva and every time you wear the mask. As Gendo was preparing to leave, Shinji would thank his father. At least, he enjoyed them being able to spend time like this. Gendo would agree, but he would leave Shinji with one more thing. Continue to do what you do, Shinji. Continue to lead them. Lead them? Your team. Penny, Asuka, Rei. I want you to officially lead them. But I didn't think... Of course, Misato watches over you, and I do as well. But in the field, I want you to lead them. Not just in battling the angels, but continue to do your heroics. Try to help others if you can. Shinji was surprised by his father's words. Was that the same Gendo Ikari he had always known? The selfish bastard that only cared about himself? His father was actually encouraging him to continue helping people? Even for Gendo himself, why did he tell his son this? As he sat as the plane was starting to leave, he rationalized that it was good motivation. The boy didn't whine or complain. If he still had the motivation to keep fighting, then it would be all the more beneficial to their plans. So yes, he would encourage Shinji's heroics. He just hoped that it wouldn't become something that would overwhelm him, or even more so, that could steer him in a direction where he couldn't be controlled. Of course, that night, Kaji was going to be late, and so was Misato getting home. Shinji had gotten home earlier, but deciding not to go on patrol yet, he played the cello. Asuka returned home as well. She had gone out with a date with some boy at school, but she left early because it wasn't anything all that great. Penny, in the meantime, was out with her friends, so that just left the two of them. Asuka would applaud Shinji for his playing, although she would be saddened that her Kaji wasn't going to be arriving anytime soon. She was a bit jealous. He was going to be out all night with Misato. Of course, as Shinji put the cello away, he was preparing to go out on patrol, to just swing through the city and see whatever happens. And Asuka would decide to follow him. Wait, you're coming with me? Uh-huh. I need the exercise. Besides, that date was so dull. I need anything to get me distracted, even if it's you, Spider-Man. It's not that. I just didn't think you... Oh, what? You don't think I can keep up with you? Don't forget, every time we fight, I end up beating you. I let you win. Sure, tell yourself that. Anyway, let's get out of here. That night, the two would swing through the city of Tokyo 3. They would save some lives, stop a few car crashes, deal with a couple of crooks and some thugs here or there. Nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing too difficult. The two found themselves sitting on a high building overlooking the city, watching the lights that shined off in the distance, the cars and the people that walked and drove by respectively. So, Want a kiss? What? Come on. I'm bored. Let's kiss. Really? That's the only reason you need to kiss? Oh, what? Does the idea of having a kiss on the anniversary of your mother's death bother you? Of course not. Asuka would tease as the two of them went for yet another swing. The two of them continuing on until eventually they found themselves in an alley, private and secure from anyone else. Asuka landed on the ground gracefully, while Shinji would slowly descend upside down behind her. I have spider sense, you know, so you're not going to scare me. I wasn't trying to. I just didn't feel like jumping all the way to the ground. Plus, hanging upside down like this is pretty cool. Asuka would get a devilish smile as she told him to stay there. The girl dressed in black and white and the boy in red and blue, hidden in the alleyway as he stood, or rather, hung upside down to be more specific, as she reached towards the bottom of his mask, slowly lifting it past his chin and past his lips, up to around his nose. Asuka, what are you? Just shut up. And hold still. To say that this kiss was unorthodox would be one thing. But it wasn't bad either. And it lasted a lot longer than either intended for it to. There was no rhyme or reason. There was no objecting. There was only a boy and a girl. An upside down boy, but still. By the time she broke away, the two of them were left in an awkward silence. Asuka didn't mind it. It wasn't bad. She wasn't going to tell him that. No. If she did such a thing, the boy's ego would shoot through the roof. And she didn't like it when Shinji got a big head. No, she had to keep the boy humble. Well, it was definitely something. What? Don't go making this weird, Shinji would say. You're the one that asked for it, as he finally turned right side up and stood right behind her. Oh, please. If anything, I did you a favor. Me a favor? You're the one that... Shinji, you should take more responsibility for your action. Responsibility? You're the one that started this. Oh, please, if you're going to go acting ungrateful, then maybe I should have kissed someone else. Oh, please, like there's anyone else in this city that would even want to kiss you. If anything, I did you a favor. What was that? You heard me. Who on earth was going to kiss a woman like you? Redheaded devil is more I like it. So, it seems like our Spider-Man is wearing his britches a lot bigger than the day, huh? Looks like I need to put you in your place. Oh, really? Like you can drop? Shinji would dodge at the last moment as she threw a punch to his left, Shinji countering with a kick to the right. It was now yet another fight between the two of them. They both fought as they climbed up the walls in the alleyway, making their way to the rooftop, their battle continuing as the two were able to move in perfect synchronization to one another, their moves complementing one another as they countered and parried each other's attacks. Safe to say, they had both definitely grown in the combat area, and Asuka was impressed. The boy was able to hold his own on a multitude of occasions, Shinji perfectly being able to match each strike she was able to land. Of course, Shinji got a little too excited though. Asuka had tried to go in for a kidney punch. Shinji countered with a kidney punch of his own, causing the girl to keel over. Ow! Oh no! Asuka! Are you okay? Shinji would now be out of the fight entirely, as he moved down to try to check on her, only for her to wrap her legs around his arm and his neck, putting him in a triangle choke. That's for the kidney punch, bastard. Asuka, damn you! Shinji would slowly pry her legs away as the two went rolling and tumbling once again, only for Asuka to land on top of him once more. Looks like I beat you again. Oh, please, you were playing dirty, faking an injury like that. I was really worried about you. Aw, that's sweet. But you don't have to worry about me, Ikari. I can take care of myself just fine. The two stood in place for what seemed like forever. Shinji starting to get a little bit claustrophobic because she was on top of him, almost straddling him, not letting him go. Can you? He found his mask coming up over his nose once again as a second kiss was taken from him. What was that for? No reason. Don't worry yourself about it. Come on, let's get home. I'm hungry and it's your turn to cook. Wait, we are not just gonna... Asuka, get back here! The two of them would happily race home, as Shinji would get dinner started, and the two of them would enjoy their meal. No matter what he did, though, she was not going to give away why she had kissed him a second time. And, well, Shinji got tired of trying to get an answer, so he finally gave up. Eventually, Masato would arrive home, in a drunken state, after all, Kaji making sure she got home okay, and bidding her and the others a good night before taking his own leave. The next day, however, as he was walking through a restricted section in Nerve, he found himself in front of a large metal door, but before he could make another move, he found a gun pointed to the back of his head. It was Masato. She had now found out Kaji's real intentions. He wasn't just working on behalf of Nerve, but rather he was undercover working for the Japanese government. Of course, though, for everything he had done for her and for being there for her, she wasn't going to rat him out or anything, but she wanted to know the truth. Kaji, he could only smile. Well, Masato, you should know that I'm not the only one with secrets. Nerve, they've been lying to you. And the proof, it's behind this door. This is the reason why. Using the key card, he would swipe through as the door would open. Masato now getting a full view of what truly lied under Nerve. Nailed to what seemed like a large red cross was the upper half of the first angel, Adam. But why? Why was the first angel here? Why was it hidden in Nerve? Kaji was right. Masato didn't know anything about Nerve at all. This concludes Neon Genesis Evangelion The Spire's Thesis, What If Shinji Was Spider-Man Part 6. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Jujutsu Kaisen The Spire's Curse, What If Miles Morales Was Sukuna's Vessel, Season 1 Part 6. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.